I hear all these sales experts ask this question: what's your decision-making process? Well, if you've ever been a human being and made a decision, what was the process you went through? Can you really document that? I don't think so. What was the process? What's your decision-making process for buying a house? Well, I don't know. I guess we need a house. Maybe a big house, or maybe a house we can afford, maybe a neighborhood we'd like. I guess we'd like to look at them, pick one out, see what we can get for our own house. They don't have a decision-making process. Yeah, they're hunting and pecking, but we're asking like they know, like they've done it many times before, like this is their job. It's typically not. Maybe they haven't bought anything of like yours ever. Never mind in the last year or so that they remember how it went about. This is the craziness that's out there in the complex sale. This is one of the things I teach in closing the complex, is how to figure this out. Because if you're asking the wrong person, you have to know what the decision-making process is in a company. How do you learn that? Well, either a lot of trial and error, or you study it. I've got an outline of it on my website, b2brevenue.com. There's a free ebook there. You can get that. And I help you through in the course, Closing the Complex Sale. But today we're going to be talking about it with my buddy Dave. Sometimes likes to be called D-Fish. I'm going to stick with Dave. Don't you think that's better? We're going to get into it. We're going to talk through how we have to be the deal Sherpa. Because if you're not, you got basically two people who don't know how to do what you're trying to do. The sales rep's following up, checking in, just wanted to see how it was going. And the person who's buying is like, yeah, I guess it looks good. I got to talk to my manager. Give me a call in a week. That's not selling. Sorry. It's a lot more complicated than that. And if you don't know how to do it, you got to learn, because that's the game you're playing. We're all learning the things from the simple sale about how to present things and ask questions. And that's all good. Bringing insights and building interest, all helpful, very useful elements of the sales process. But unless you know how to guide them from that to actually purchasing, no one talks about this. You're not going to get a lot of deals. You're relying on them to figure it out. And they're not on commission. We're on commission. They're not going to get canned if they don't make their number. You're going to get canned. Hey, Brian, why are you so optimistic? I don't know. It's the middle of the week. Everybody's on spring break. I thought I'd liven it up a little bit. But before we get into it, I want to make sure you're checking out Co-Video. Co-Video is the key to get engaged with new opportunities. It is so engaging. Check it out. They've got a great set of videos on YouTube, Co-Video on YouTube. Did I tell you I'm on YouTube too? Brian Burns Sales on YouTube. So check them out. It's insanely powerful. It's what a lot of people are breaking in to get into new accounts. A lot of the members of Start the Conversation, Get the Meeting, or have moved to video email. It's organically personalized. So it's powerful. It breaks through the noise. You get automatic curiosity, which is really one of the two things to get in. It's either utility or curiosity. And utility, you're kind of guessing. Curiosity is kind of easy to do. So give it a shot. Co-Video. And when you're talking to them, make sure you tell them you heard about it on the podcast. Also, oh, God, Pipedrive is just cooking. I mean, it automatically fills in the data for you, all the contact info, company info. People are using it just for the email. It tells you when the email's opened, and it has all these templates and email merges for you. Again, highly recommend it. You get it for 60 days for free with the Brutal Truth coupon code. What more can I do for you folks? Just trying to make you money. Let's get into the interview, and I'll sum it up at the end, and I'll give you an update on what's going on with the one-on-ones in the course. Everybody wants one-on-ones. Hey, David, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm based in Chicago, Illinois. I'm a speaker, coach, and author, and I've been working with professionals in that capacity for almost 15 years.
And how'd you get interested in it?
Well, I actually started out in sales. Many people probably know the company Cutco Cutlery.
Oh boy.
It's a direct sales company. Yeah, I'm one of those kids. But paid my way through school, slinging blades, and then ran the Chicago office for about 6 years after graduating, and kind of got the bug. And when I left that position, I realized I really enjoyed selling, but I really enjoyed selling people on themselves and on their careers and on their potential. So kind of made that shift into being a coach, and then started writing books and started speaking and training on sales and networking and social media. And it's kind of just evolved from there.
And that's probably, I got to believe door to door is like the hardest of sales. Am I right?
Yeah, in our defense, we were not door to door. We only worked by appointment, but it was direct in-home sales. And to this day, I tell people, I'm like, if I can sit across from Mr. and Mrs. Jones and get them to spend, sometimes $1,000 on knives. These were not inexpensive.
They're not.
In 45 minutes, I can sell anything. But it was amazing training. It really was, looking back, just an amazing opportunity to learn those skills at 20. That was awesome. And it's been pretty cool.
Now, in the sales world, I think that is called a simple sale. Not that it's simple, but that it's a single sales call, or
one call close, transactional, bada boom, bada bing.
Yeah. So if you left that day without the order, the likelihood was pretty low that they would order.
When I was running,
if you would leave,
every representative who came in and said, "Oh no, they're totally going to buy next week," I was like, "Oh man, if I only had $1 for every time I heard that, I'd be rich." You got it then, or you didn't get it.
And how aggressive would you be?
Well, ironically, what I found was success didn't come from being aggressive. I mean, there was definitely some reps who were. My style was very. I learned early on through some mentors the power of just really asking the right questions and really kind of connecting to their needs. And so my closing ratio was 92%.
Wow.
So it was pretty high. But sometimes that just meant they got a knife or, just one piece. Sometimes there's a whole thing, but it was really, I felt very confident in the product. And my goal was always to kind of, it sounds really corny, but it worked to say, okay, if you don't like to cook, you don't need everything. If you like to cook, you need everything. But everybody eats. Everybody has a kitchen, so let's make sure you have the best stuff in it.
And what problem was Cutco solving?
Cutco was really solving the problem of crappy knives. It was really interesting to think about that, something that you use in your house every day, sometimes a couple times a day, and you don't even think about it, right? You either get something when you get married or you get a couple knives when you have your first apartment, and they don't work. They're dangerous. It's a crappy product. And so when you were able to go in and show, hey, we've got a great product and it makes your life easier, it's safer, it's faster. There's people who are like, I don't like to cook, but now I like cooking because of Cutco. I was like, okay, that's great. And that was the problem that we were solving for people, and that they never had to buy knives ever again. I mean, I've had my set for over 20 years now. And I will until I die. I swear that my wife married me in part because I had good cutlery and she loves to cook.
Oh, he has a sense of humor, and his cutlery is impeccable.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't rely on my good looks, unfortunately.
No, we all have our strengths.
Right.
Now, did you get involved in the complex sale at any time?
So it was really interesting. The complex sale really happened after Cutco.
Yeah.
Because that's I was a sales manager for Brinks, the home security company, which pretty familiar. Most people are familiar with. But then it was really when I opened my own shop here and really started working more in the B2B space that I really started understanding the complex sale and learning how to take those kind of human to human, more transactional skills and apply them into the larger framework of especially, those 3, 4, 5, 6 decision maker processes, the longer sales cycles. But it's interesting, like I realized that since I had that background, I was able to really easily fit into the more complex scenarios because I could basically look at how to talk to the person across from me, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So very early, I walked in knowing it was all about how do I, and this sounds a little more aggressive than I mean it to, but how do I sell the person that I'm talking to right now, right? How do I identify their challenges, their problems? They might not be the final decision maker. Maybe they're the end user. So I got to figure out what what they need and how I can help them. And at the same time, get information that I can then go and talk to their VP, right? Or the CFO who's going to sign off on this and build up from there.
And what kind of learning process was that? Was it instantaneous or did it take a while?
No, I'm a genius. It happened overnight.
Well, that's it. I mean, because it's orthogonal to Cutco, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think the idea of it evolved. And I think there was definitely a learning curve and a process where I did have to kind of learn, just like any sales rep in any new industry is going to go into, I had to kind of learn how it works. Yeah. And, I kind of, in the beginning, I don't think I was as adept or understanding of kind of let's call them the politics or the hidden relationships between people in different positions. But the nice thing is when I did figure that strategic part out, I was able to bring the tactics into it pretty easily. And I found that a lot of times in my work since then is that I'll talk to these sales reps who, they understand the strategic side of the complex sale, but they just struggle because tactically they're a mess, right? Like they get the strategy, but they're a jerk, or, they don't get, well, no, you do have to follow up. And, you have to ask the questions and understand where your prospect is coming from. And so it's been a fun process of melding those two together. So after 15 years, I'm starting to get it, but there's always more to learn, right?
Well, I've seen people in the complex sale, 25, 30 years into it and not get it, meaning that they get real comfortable with that point of contact, the so-called champion, and they don't spread out outside of that.
Yeah, which is always the mistake.
It's the number one mistake in the complex sale.
And it's funny, I did learn, that's actually something I learned very early on selling knives, which it might not sound connected, but in most situations you had two decision makers, right? Yeah. Mr. and Mrs. Jones. And they often had very different buying parameters. They had different problems they were solving. Yeah. And often they were sitting there, right? Luckily, you'd often have them together, but learning how to even just manage that was critical. And it was very, I don't think to myself, well, what is Mr. Jones going to say to this, or why is the wife not going to buy? But I can go, hey, I'm talking to two partners in a smaller firm, right? Yeah. Two founders, and being able to sit at that table and realize, wow, they have very different goals from this conversation and from what the work we're going to do together, and I have to satisfy both of those. Yeah. As I said, it's not only that you have to get everybody to say yes, you just have to make sure that nobody says no.
Right. That's good. Yeah.
So yeah, it was very valuable.
And we connected over a video that I posted on LinkedIn about deal Sherpas.
Yeah.
You kind of got a little fired up about that, and I liked it. Give me your reaction to that.
Well, so it was really interesting because my latest book is called Hyper-Connected Selling. And I talk kind of about how to sell in this hyper-connected world with, complex sales and lots of buyers, lots of information. And one of my main ideas is that we have to be sales Sherpas, right? Because the transactional piece of the business is going to be subsumed, if not already has been subsumed by technology. What do we bring in the sales role? What is actual value? And the argument I would make is that a salesperson provides value by helping their customers take all the information they have and make better decisions, whether those are faster, more effective, more efficient, but they make better decisions. Just like a Sherpa goes to somebody who wants to climb up a mountain, and that person could probably figure it out, but they might fall off a side of a cliff or something. But the Sherpa says, hey, I've been up this mountain before. I'm an expert on this mountain. I'm an expert on climbing. Let me help you. Let me walk you through the process.
Yeah.
And therefore making it, less painful, faster, all that kind of stuff. So that's why I think it really is imperative for salespeople to embrace that idea of really being a sales Sherpa.
And that's it. And if they don't know that terrain, that mountain, then you have two people who don't know that terrain in that mountain.
which is never good. Which is never good. Blind leading the blind. Yeah.
And I kind of hound on it that nobody teaches people how to spend the company's money. Right. I've worked at 12 companies. Never did we have a class on how to spend the company's money and disrupt how they do things. It was, right. You do what we say and you leave our money alone.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right.
The example, I use this in the book, and it's more of a B2C example, but it's something I think all of us have familiarity with, and that's buying a house. Yeah. Right. In theory, we know how to buy a house, but we do it so rarely. We don't understand. We can get all the information online these days, but we don't know, is this really a good neighborhood? How do we rate it? How do we make an offer? How do we counter offer? That's why you have a real estate agent who's like, I understand this neighborhood or the city. I know how this process works. Let me help you. And so we have to do the same thing. Your buyer, especially the more complex the sale gets, they don't do this every day. They don't know how to do. Sure, they've got all these blogs and all these videos and all these white papers. They got all the information they could possibly want, but they don't know what to do with it.
Well, even that I like to argue about, because I hear, it's near perfect information. I say it's about as far away from perfect as you can get, because everyone's information is different. Right?
Well, and they've actually done studies that show that the more information that people have, the worse their decision making is.
Yeah. Right. Tell me what the best car is. It's like, how do you judge that? Mm-hmm. The best car for me, or all of, who can understand half of it anyway?
Well, and I think what sellers have to do as well is understand that most of your buyers, not only do they not know how to buy, they actually often don't really have clarity around the real problems that they have and how they can solve those problems. So, and those are often a moving target when you're in organizations. So that's why just the ability to even build those relationships and help people understand what are they trying to do with your product or service, and then you can show them how you can actually help them achieve that goal, or maybe even go, hey, this is actually not what you need. You should go in a different direction. I mean, that also saves you from having a bad customer down the line, or an incorrect customer, let's say.
Yeah, because the nature of a customer is, tell me who you are, what you do, and what it costs. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah.
Right? If you go to a doctor and you go, my hip hurts, and he goes, well, let me x-ray. Can't you just give me a pill? And I go, yeah, you won't feel the pain, but it may not fix your hip.
And you'll be back in here in a month, and
your hip will be worse.
Yep. Exactly. And so that's where, to your idea of, knowing the terrain, I think that it's really important for salespeople to, yes, know their industry, yes, know their product, know the landscape, but then also to invest time and attention and energy developing the skills of asking questions, not just because their sales manager told them to, but because then they can actually figure out what's really going on with the customer. Building trust. I mean, I talk a lot about empathy in sales, and it's not a tree hugger kind of just kumbaya idea. It's, if you trust me, then I can tell you things that I couldn't tell you otherwise, and you'll actually act on it.
Yes.
Right?
You'll believe what I tell you too.
Yeah.
Go figure.
And I think that a lot of what we're talking about over the last 20 or 30 years was definitely swept under the rug, in a very aggressive, kind of macho sales culture, right? Grind and hustle, bang the phone, all that stuff. and there's a time and place for it. I'm not saying that you don't have to put a ton of work in. Being a sales Sherpa is way harder than just banging the phones, trying to get transactional sales. But I think that as the sales world evolves, as our marketplace evolves, as our buyer evolves, for us to keep up with it, we have to invest in these skills in ourselves.
And that's it. And if you don't know how to guide them, you're assuming that they do. And this is why we fall into this quagmire of stalled deals and no decision.
Mm-hmm.
Because think of the number of things in your head of what you'd like to buy.
Right.
But I probably have 10 or 15 right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, okay, if I focus on the pain, I might buy them. Or maybe if I get a big check in, then I have the desire to buy them. But a lot of them, they just sit in my head. And
because they're not pushing you yet.
Right. You know, if you think about your car, I use this analogy, right? You need new tires. Some people will wait till they go get their oil changed to get them replaced. Some people will wait till they get a flat.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. And some people will wait until their mechanic goes, I can't legally let you drive out.
I need your keys. Yeah.
on these tires.
And this is it. And this is what reps don't understand, because they demonstrate the tires, they quote the tires, they give an incentive price on the tires, and then they follow up. But they're not getting to the core issue, which will cause them to replace them.
Yeah, as you said, the pain. And I think kind of another wrinkle, which I often talk about, is the fact that you might first engage with somebody when they don't need tires.
Yes.
But I think the question to ask is, how do we use the tools available to us to make sure that we stay top of mind? So when they do get that flat and they're like, I guess I better replace my tires, you're the guide, you're the trusted resource, the expert, right? The deal Sherpa. And they're like, hey, I'm going to call Brian because he knows tires.
And that's it. And I think a lot of us do sell a time-based product that it's based off of a trigger event, a life event, or a business event, a time of year event. And instead of them going and Googling and starting a sales process from scratch, the sales process has already been established, and you are the person they call, as you stated.
Exactly.
And I don't think many people teach this, and I think very few people even know this.
Well, that's why I'm evangelizing. Hopefully we'll make a whole generation of sales Sherpas.
And just think of the tragedy of not knowing it, because I think everybody, when somebody's in market, active paying, has money, they've done a market study, and they're ready to pick or evaluate one of three. Most of us are pretty good at that.
Oh yeah.
But still, and the people will tell me, well, okay, they make the technical selection for us, but they still don't buy. And it's like, okay, that's half the sales process.
Right.
The other half is talking to the person at the table who's not talking, who has their arms crossed, and it's like, $1,000 for knives? I got knives.
What a wonderful skill that I learned early on. I'll give you a great example. My dad wasn't going to buy knives just because it was me. He's like, these are expensive. But my mom wanted them, and I knew how to work with her to get past his objections. Meaning she said, well, do you want to start cooking for me? And I was like, well, listen to mom. And yeah, that's why I think even as we look at these complex sales scenarios and sales cycles, that human to human part, or even just that awareness on the part of the salesperson to go, hey, that person in the meeting didn't say much.
Yeah.
Why? And you know what? And I'm going to address it. And whatever the people skills you have that you utilize at that point, or even just, at the end of that process, they've narrowed it down to 3, going, hey, Sue, based on our relationship and the conversations we've had, I think we can actually really be a good fit and help you move forward and help take care of pain, X, Y, Z. Do you want to work together? Right. I mean, still asking for the business is going to be critical.
And this is it. Not, when I think about, the larger deals that I've done and the larger deals I've seen other people done that I've worked with, it wasn't their charm and personality that got the deals done. It was their ability to understand how that company will make this decision and Sherpa it through that process.
Yep.
And
that's exactly right.
And I've seen just the opposite happen, where somebody is, super charming, give great presentation. I had this guy I'd bring in, he'd give the best engaging presentation, and we'd be out in the parking lot, and he goes, "That's a slam dunk." I go, "You build excitement and interest. That's about all we got today." And he thought that was the whole deal.
Yeah. I had a mentor teach me early on, and you kind of asked about, how I learned in the complex sale. I had a mentor early on, and we're selling knives. He actually was my manager. He came out and watched me do a presentation, and I was very successful early on. I had a lot of kind of enthusiasm and fire, and he came and watched this presentation, and I didn't sell. And afterwards, he goes, "I would have sold to that customer." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "All you did was talk at them.
Yeah.
You didn't, like, the wife in particular gave you a bunch of buying signals which you paid zero attention to." And from literally that day forward, I was like, "Oh, I get it. It's not about me. It's about them," which is hard for salespeople because we have egos.
Well,
but
we're taught to talk. We're not taught to listen.
Right. And the more we can just shut up and actually engage on a human level with people, they'll tell you, right? They'll tell you their pain. They'll tell you what their problems are if you actually care. And again, I don't care how big the dollar sign is on the contract. You're still talking to people. And if you can connect on that, I said, the human to human level, good things will happen.
And that's it. And once we leave, we have diminished our amount of control over it. And certainly, like in the Cutco example, if you don't get that order when you're there, the momentum goes down like a roller coaster.
Yes, indeed.
The same is true with a car. You've got somebody in it. They're getting emotionally attached to it. All you have to do is make the numbers work after you get them out of that car. If you let them go home and think about it, right, it just turns into one of the 15 things in their head they like to have.
Yep.
I mean, before I bought a car, I'd go driving around at early in the morning when I'm getting my coffee, go to the dealership, drive through the lot, look at things. I didn't get out and go and test drive until I was pretty sure which one I wanted.
Right.
But even then, if they're not giving me a deal or some reason to do it today, 6 months in a year is not a big deal. The next model's coming out.
Right. And what's interesting is I think, so for example, the idea of building urgency into your relationship with people is important, right? Even if it's a complex, long-term sales cycle, you do have to move them along it, right? And there's times that you kind of, you want to leverage, right? And kind of push a little bit. But you can't push too hard because if you're too aggressive, they can just opt out.
Well, that's it. Right? If you take the Sherpa analogy, if you don't keep them moving up the mountain, the natural thing is for them to move down the mountain.
Yep.
And down the mountain means go home and do something else with their vacation.
Right. Well, and something I think you pointed out earlier is important to remember that when you're going into, and just give an example, let's say you sell a relatively complicated SaaS platform. That is probably just one thing out of many that your potential clients are worried about that day, right? They're not just sitting around a conference table all day thinking about this decision. No. So it's not only about, I think, figuring out their pain and helping move them up the mountain, but doing it in a way that's respectful of the other demands they have on their time, and just even being cognizant of that, right?
Yeah.
I love salespeople who think that they're the most important thing in their customers' lives. I'm like, not even close. right?
No.
But who can come in and say, hey, I just want to make this easier so I can get this to do off your list. I mean, that in and of itself can be really valuable.
That's great. Hey, David, where can people go to connect with you, learn about your work, and get to know you better?
Yeah, so the best place online, my website, davidjpfisher.com /podcast/brutal truth. We got a landing page right for your listeners. But davidjpfisher.com is my website. Also, Twitter, dfishrockstar. I'm on LinkedIn all the time, linkedin.com/in/imdfish.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that interview. Dave's a great guy. We have to be able to guide our customers through that process. Otherwise, we're two lost people out there trying to get our deal done. So the first thing is to learn that process. The second is to help guide the person through the process and not assume they are the decision maker. The worst thing you can assume in a complex sale is that there is one decision maker. Even when you sell to mom and pop go away, and the decision too often turns into a coin toss. That's what our job is. Our job is to make sure it doesn't turn into that. Our job is to make sure it is guided towards us and nobody else. That's how we win the deal. That's the real selling in the complex sale. Everyone thinks the selling is the presentation and the demo and the negotiation. That's part of it. It's all part of it. But we have to understand the game we're playing. A lot of us aren't. We're kind of stimulus response, little critters out there, following the light and scared of the noise, instead of understanding the real terrain of the complex sale. And trust me, I talk to people with 30, 40 years of complex sale experience, and they still don't know this. They're still relying solely on their business acumen or their relationship or their presentation skills or their gift of gab, all great ingredients in the recipe of success. But if you don't know the dish you're making, if you don't know the kitchen you're in, if you don't know what your customer wants and what they care about and how they are going to enjoy that meal you're cooking for them, you're not going to really get it. It is like going on a mountain climbing thing without a Sherpa, because it looks pretty easy when you begin, and all of a sudden you don't do anything until you get thirsty. You don't have food until you're hungry. You don't sleep until you're tired. What does a Sherpa do for you? A Sherpa prepares all this stuff for you, guides you through this process. And this is what the Closing the Complex Sale course is all about. I take each person's deal and we break it down and we prevent these bad things from happening. Because the nature of things is to go wrong in the complex sale. And the people who become really great at the complex sale know the game that they're playing. They know all they have to do is guide the person through, prevent the bad things from happening, ensure that the good things are. Because the people I see successful, they're not these charming little gadflies or dynamic dynamos. They're just normal people, but they know the game they're playing. They learned it. They guide the person through each step. And it's just so easy in the complex sale for it to go to no decision, which is really just a stall deal, a deal where they just don't know what to do next, or they're waiting for, a political checkbox. So what you want to do is really dedicate learning the game that you're playing. Because if you're in the B2B sale, you're playing the game whether you know it or not. How well you play it is what matters. And everybody's focused on subject lines and what time to call and the right words to say. And that's part of it, but it's not the whole thing. So check it all out at b2brevenue.com. Under training, you can pick a time. We can get on the phone, see if it's a great match for you. Check out the agenda. It has 3 major components. It has the core content of the course, which you get access to for a year. Whether you pay monthly, it's 12 monthly payments, not a membership, but just 12 payment plans, or pay all at once, up to you. And you get the content immediately, day one. And then you get also office hours, which is a twice monthly 1-hour meetup online. And you can, it's all recorded and put into the course. You can submit your questions. I answer questions, go over new topics, new tools, deals. The one-on-ones is the thing that people are finding a lot of value, where after you take the course, we get on Zoom and we go through a deal, or we apply the course to what you're facing. We go through results, and everybody gets to see everybody else's one-on-one. It's completely private in the sense that we don't talk about who you are, what you're really selling, and your customer's name. We really don't need to know that. What we need to know is, okay, what's your strategy? What typically goes wrong? And I guide you through what to anticipate. And people are getting a ton of value, and it's unlimited. So if you want to do it once a week, we can do it once a week and really develop you over a year to be, take your game to the next level. We got people who double, triple in their income through doing it. So check it out, b2brevenue.com. I really appreciate everybody who's helping support me on LinkedIn by sharing the content, telling a sales rep about the podcast. Also, make sure you're subscribing to Sales Questions. You got sales questions? I got brutally honest answers for you. Also, I got the B2B Revenue Leadership Show if you're into that leadership thing. You see that in the future, kids? Okay, we'll see you next time.